And we are back on Open Line. Chuck Long here with one of my all-time favorites, Kevin Kennedy from the Kennedy Law Firm. A lot of you on the line, if you are just tuning in right now, this is Ask an Attorney, which means it's your chance to ask that legal question that you've been thinking about. A lot of you are online with us right now, so we want to get right back to our phones. By the way, you can see that number on the screen right there, 737-7587. All right, Kevin, got a lot of callers.
Okay.
First few callers, just some great questions, great comments.
I think so too.
Let's go right back to the lines right now. Carolyn, we're glad that you are on Open Line. Do you have a question or a comment for Kevin?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
The question is, a man and woman, which are husband and wife, buys a home, and later years the man refinances the house in his own name only, and then the wife is on the deed. How do you handle a situation when the husband gets sick in a position where he can't pay the mortgage?
Okay. Here's a good point right there. Always know whose name is on the deed. So for the young women, so well, we let the bank do it, my husband did that. The lesson from this question is you should know, is your name on the deed? And if it's not, then y'all take steps to say, let's get that corrected where it's got both husband and wife. In the state of Tennessee, if a husband and wife buy that together, there's a law that helps marriage. Why? Public policy was for marriage. It's called tenants by the entirety. And if he died by operational law, no estate, nothing, then that becomes hers. If she died, it becomes his. And for these people who would like to have that same thing in a partnership, a lawyer can solve that. It's all in how we write the deed. We can say Kevin and Chuck own this property with the right of survivorship. If I died, it's Chuck's. If he dies, it's mine. And if we didn't have it that way, we would take the property as tenants in common. So if he's still alive, and y'all are still talking, you have good terms, then it's a matter of finding out what the deed says and then going and having a lawyer draw it and can quit claim part interest back, and they can quit claim all their interest. So you just need to talk to a lawyer privately about that. But again, you find out what the status of your property is and know it, and then make your arrangements from there.
Okay, thanks so much, Carolyn, for calling in. And once again, I mean, great information. So that's a big, big help. All right, let's go right back to the lines right now. Pat is on the line with us. Pat, good evening. Do you have a question or a comment for Kevin?
Did you say Pat?
I said Pat.
Hello, Pat.
We're glad you're here.
Okay. Thank you for answering the call. I have a question about the 2008 financial crisis.
Okay.
So, as we know, everything that happened, and at the time, the company I worked for laid me off. I was 3 years from full retirement. They laid off another individual in the same department. By the way, I had been with them 17 years.
Wow.
They laid off another individual. We happened to be the same age, same month, same year. He had been with the company 23 years. Now, my opinion is that they used the excuse of the crisis because they said they had to close down some plants and they had to reorganize because of the crisis.
Yes.
Now, we all know that the crisis turned out to be something that was actually planned by a number of people, and we all know that some people went to prison or at least were charged huge fines for some of the things that they did. The bubble was not real. They bundled those mortgages in. They bundled those ratings that they give them.
Yes.
And they knew they were doing something dishonest. And those people all, I don't know if all of them got punishment. I hope they did. But my question goes back to, could a law firm, if somebody would just think about it, could they sue for all of the millions? Think of the millions of people. The news said that it happened to thousands or millions of people across our country, laid off early because of the crisis.
Yeah. And that's a really good point that you bring up, Pat. And so there's a lot of different levels, and what you're traveling on is a theory. did someone do you wrong? Were they responsible? And did you receive damages because of their actions? Every bit of that formula has fit. So the first thing a lawyer is going to do is, what does the law say? Because we have to have a violation. Well, remember, in Tennessee, they have what's known as employment at will. It means that I can work for Chuck and I can quit anytime. He can't sue me. Or Chuck can fire me for any reason, or Chuck can lay me off. Now, there are exceptions. Remember this, there's always an exception to an exception. And remember this, a creative lawyer can create a theory upon which he could travel and file a lawsuit. Unjust enrichment. There's a host of theories that a person could pursue. And you have identified it, you have evaluated it correctly, and here we are. Now, probably a problem that's developed is the statute of limitations is probably run from that time till now. So that's something that a lawyer would look at. And number two, if you could show that that was defrauding these people, if it was cheating them, sometimes a lawyer can get in and negotiate and say, for my client, you need to give her a severance package, and if you don't, we're going to bring a lawsuit. Now, what does that really mean? It means your lawyer would create a theory, he would advance that theory, didn't say we could save everyone, and if we did, that gets into a class action lawsuit, and they're harder to dance, but many times you need your lawyer to look after your interests, and he who fights and gets away, he'll live to fight another day. So I would have told you, talk to a lawyer privately. That is a big hurdle to deal with now that we're from 2008 till now. But you were exactly correct, and you're trying to help others that can find themselves in the same situation. And thank you, Pat. You have identified it and made a great analysis.
It really has. So thanks for bringing up that topic. We go right back to the phones right now. Okay, let's go to David on the line with us. David, we're glad that you're here on Open Line. Do you have a question or a comment for Kevin? Can you hear us, David? Try one more time. David, can you hear us? Okay, we will try to come back. All right, let's right now go to Dee Dee is on the line with us. Dee Dee, good evening. Do you have a question?
I do have a question.
All righty.
All right, go ahead. And Dee Dee, if you might turn your television down while you're asking the question, just so you don't get that feedback.
Did you say Dee Dee?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Here's my question, and thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
Thank you.
A husband and a wife, early years ago, they signed forms for the pension or retirement, not understanding, I guess, all of the paperwork that goes with it and everything, not understanding that it did not go, you would not get paid after death. So how can that be reversed when the company says that once you sign, that's it, and there's no death benefits to be paid out? If you didn't understand and you didn't, all of that, had no idea it meant no death after death payments.
Yes.
So can that be reversed?
Well, here's the real world. You know, when you go in there, you'll always hear Kevin Kennedy say a good understanding keeps down a misunderstanding. If we got a job, and here's where you really get ripped off, is you go in there and you talk to the administrator and you say, okay, so we have a 401k, and should he die, those monies that he paid in plus the interest would go to his named beneficiary. Now, that's a good understanding, and that's the way most companies operate. But if they lied to you, 40 years later, that person's no longer there, and it's the word of mouth. You have to have it in writing. So what you should always do is say, can y'all present us a copy? Anything you sign, you're usually entitled to get a copy of it so that you can go and question and have somebody with you that we do have a good understanding. If you're in that and you've been 3 or 4 years, you ought to go visit the administrator and say, can we go over what the 401k and the retirement plan is? That's what I would recommend. If you need a lawyer can go request that, get a copy, and see if the person is interpreting that correctly or incorrect. You might spend a little bit with a lawyer. Lawyer might take it on some percentage to collection. And so you've got some options left to you, and I encourage you to go pursue it.
All right, thanks so much for that call, Dee Dee. We appreciate your calls this evening. If you do have one of those questions, get online with us at 737-7587. If you're online with us, we'll come back with your questions right after this. You're watching Open Line.